Alrighty, hello, hello, hello. Oh no. No background. Oh well. Gnome can go back up. That's great. Thought we had everything working for once, but no. But hey, we have Ethernet, and that's what matters. Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you guys for being here. Hope you guys are having a good day. Let me be sure to let me know in chat. Love to check in with you guys, see how everyone's doing. Looks like we're going to be playing Repo today, but there's plenty of time for that to change. We're going to be playing for we'll be live for a couple hours tonight. Um, Late start, had to take some time to do the Ethernet thing and other stuff around the house. Got company coming over tomorrow. Um, the St. Patrick's Day stream is kind of taking the place of some of our hours here. That and the fact that we did like 3 extra hours on Tuesday. But I still want to be, I'm so glad to be here. Glad to be able to spend this time playing with you guys, especially since we have a night where people are more able to stay up late and keep the party going. So I'm excited for that. Let me know. There's also a poll in the chat. I know we talked Wednesday about starting to do that, so try to make that a thing today. Feel free to let me know as time goes on in the club's chat if there's a question you want asked. You know, something you want to debate in a poll. DM me, whatever you want to do. But yeah, voting is open for the next 10 minutes. You have to let me know how Ethernet goes. Hopefully everything's coming through smooth. I know we had a little bit of a hiccup during the starting soon, but that was my VPN connecting. So shouldn't be anything else other than that. What else am I thinking? Let me check my Discord to see. I got a few notifications since I went live. Um, Gibbon, wondering if it's okay if he's not here tonight. Uh-oh. It'd be a lonely night. Do what you gotta do, man. I don't know. I maybe just Silverback and I don't know. Maybe we'll find a game that just Silverback and I like to play. Or we'll see what Jay's playing. I think he's still playing Rainbow. Checking with the tavern. You said I'll let us know when we decide what we want to do. Probably Repo, but like I'd prefer to do something like Roblox or Minecraft. Hmm. Alright, we'll figure it out. Let me know if anyone's seen the new Snow White, by the way. I know that just recently came out. Um, Not a lot is being said positively of it, and that kind of goes from Rotten Tomatoes critics to audience, just really, really bombing. So I don't know. I doubt I had no intention of seeing it beforehand, but was open to it if it turned out to be good. But I don't really see it going there right now. So you know, sure. Looks pretty good. Just the point across gets it in there. This little cross down here has been touched to an actual piece of the cross of Christ, so pretty dang important to me. I can't have my main one in the shot. The angle we're at right now. I'd like to have this one there. scripture back up here. And the flag. Everything's in shot too. Perfect. All right. Hmm. All right. So, where to start? We're doing a pity party today. I'll mention that because it's kind of embarrassed. I forgot to do it Tuesday. Just I guess Century leaving, and everything kind of threw me off during that day. But so I'm making up for it today. And given Century going and the fact that it's Brain Injury Awareness Month, I thought we'd do Wounded Warrior Project again. So I'm not in any state physically right now. Nothing really to report there overall yet. Nothing certain, but just now like new week, new issue. More like new year. Because it's more of a major thing with me than a minor thing. It's not like I'm sick. It's just. But we'll see what it actually is. But dealing with that. But no, nonetheless, I still got some stuff here. I got a this time we've done garlic powder or onion powder before, so I decided to do garlic powder. So like this is normally like a powdered sugar little treat there, but I added garlic powder to it, so should be significantly nasty for our purposes. Um, yeah. So today for a discussion segment, I promised something on Saint Joseph. Wasn't sure when I was going to. The reason we're doing it now is because his feast day was earlier this week, and that only comes one time a year, so I didn't want to miss that. Even though we had the mess up with yesterday, I just wrote everything down. We're gonna postpone it until next week. Everything will be all right with that. Um, so we will get back to that. And yeah, so this is gonna be a little bit of a shorter and sweeter one. Um, and then we will get on to gaming, whatever that might be. Alrighty. So I'll let this go in the back as normal. I posted about it today. Not much to say. Verse of the day, Nehemiah. Do not be silent this day, for rejoicing in the Lord is your strength. And that's a good thing. And a good thing to even lean into, because I know that's a big thing with me today. For me, anyways, today. We're in the season of Krabby Jack. It's the time of year where things are going on around the farm, which means it's the time of year where my folks surprise me with something massive that's going to totally derail my week, like 5 times a week. Um, about things that could have been known a month in advance, but I find out the day of. But we're gonna get through it because that's I was kind of reproving myself. I spoke yesterday about just how much it meant to me to really be doing something positive here, and I want to be that and stay true to that, even though some days like today, not quite feeling it as naturally. We're gonna choose to do it anyways. We're gonna work through it. Do not be sad in this day. We're going to rejoice in the Lord, and we're going to rejoice in the story of St. Joseph, which is really a beautiful story. One of the best in Christianity, something very personal to me. I do feel like I kind of, when I was writing down the discussion segment we're moving to next week, got a better grasp on a way of progressing through things that'll allow me to kind of more easy, sort of a formula I can just plug stuff into that'll make this whole process easier for me. So always start with like just the literal who is this person, what is this thing, talk a little bit about what it means to me, and then talk about its deeper meaning, tie it all back in together again, and then kind of close out with implications, stuff to carry on. Kind of just a 5 bullet point thing, work through in a period of anywhere between 5 to 30 minutes ideally. Days like today are going to be longer because I'm in a rambling mood. I'm sorry. I do apologize, but hopefully things will be better next week. It always, next week will be a better week. Hopefully. Got a haircut, by the way. I hope that it looks all right. Didn't have a chance to gel it up, so it's kind of just all natural right now. Let's talk about who is Saint Joseph. So I'll go through that before I do this. Let's see. Did anyone vote in the poll? Sunshine is what people are most excited for. For me, I would have put probably Easter as my vote. I forgot to vote. I should have voted myself. But whoever voted Sunshine, I'm also with you on that though, because like that's my second thing I'm second most excited for. Easter this year is like right on my birthday, and it's when Gibbon's coming in. One of my favorite times of the entire year. So always super super excited for that, especially since Sunshine's like I live in the Midwest. Who knows if I'll actually have sunshine when it comes to spring? But I really need to be warm right now. You guys know from the Q&A stream, I hate feet wear. And I have my footsies up today. I'm wearing socks because it's just that cold. Like it is that freezing. Like the thermostat is set to 71, and like I touch a piece of metal on the floor and it's like ice cold, and I'm dying here. But it is what it is. So, anyways, who is Saint Joseph? So Saint Joseph was the foster father of the Son of God. That is the quickest way to really put it, and everything kind of flows from that. In his case, more literally than it does for a lot of people. I know we've talked about before the idea of vocation as something that defines who God made you to be, and for Saint Joseph in a special way, that is his identity. Everything in his life kind of revolved around those moments. We know not very little about his life beforehand, about it afterhand. As with many biblical figures, he's kind of a nobody, and not even just like a nobody, like in a sphere of life people don't know a lot about, but a nobody among nobodies. You know, you think of like a car salesman. There's car salesmen I'm sure who are out there who are like the big cheese in that industry that everyone there knows, but I have no idea who they are. But there's somebody to somebody. And St. Joseph really wasn't. He's just kind of an ordinary dude, an ordinary, simple, humble man who very deeply loved God, though. This is a man to whom God entrusted raising his son, and entrusted teaching his son who God was. Teaching him, witnessing to him the love of God the Father, instructing him in what it meant to be a good man, what it meant to be everything Jesus would end up being. And from there, we don't know much about his life after. We know he's out of the picture by the time of Jesus' ministry. We don't even know what age he was when he took on the identity of the father of Jesus. He could have either been, some people kind of see him as the older Saint Joseph. They view him this way because of this is a way of reconciling, Jesus' sibling. It talks about brothers and sisters of Jesus. People will look at that two ways. Some will see it in a way of translation, because the word used could have also meant cousins or other things. We don't know if they were actually his brothers and sisters. But another way of reconciling that is saying that they were his brothers and sisters. St. Joseph had a wife who passed away. He was a widower and then remarried with Mary. And also, kind of it adds a certain element to his story where he's representative of the older patriarchs, who are, very often also depicted as older men. Adds an element of virtue to his story, and that he made that walk to Egypt and walk back at that age in his life. So there's a lot of people who are pro, old St. Joseph, and there's also a lot of people who are pro young St. Joseph. I'm kind of indifferent to it myself, because they each kind of have their own set of virtues, which, that shine a particular way because of that reality in his life. But either way, we know he would have had. He is either way a chaste and honorable man. When you look at the young St. Joseph, that's really stands out there. This man who was a simple, ordinary man, young man, who chose to be the chaste guardian of the Virgin and of Christ himself, and really commit himself to that job, even, in the prime of his life. And we also don't know, but another reason people think he might have been older as well is because he passed away by the time Jesus was 30. But in that, time in history, also very easily could have had a young man die by that age. So we really don't know. People will see it either way. But nonetheless, we know he is a very holy man. What he means to me, I won't say what, I won't say which one it is. I have 3 names. I have my baptism name. I have my confirmation name. I have a middle name. But one of those names is Joseph. So he's always been a part of my life in a very special way. My godfather is also named Joseph. Someone I've always spent a lot of time contemplating, and also just like a witness of the simple man, a married man, a father, and what it means to be saintly in that part of life. And it's a big thing with this channel and everything too, and kind of my whole outlook on life is this idea of supreme holiness being found not only kind of in the church and in your leaders, but also in your day-to-day life, your simple ordinary people, which I think is a very beautiful thing. And so let this video cook for a second. And then as we kind of go into the idea of God's justice, which is something we talked earlier this week about divine mercy, and that's why I also thought it'd be a good idea to talk about Saint Joseph in this sense, because one of the ways he's traditionally called, one of the traditional titles is simply as Saint Joseph the Just. He's one of the few who really stand out in that role as being called that. Even in the Bible, I believe he's referred to as a just man. And there's a big question there, like, what does that mean when the Word of God calls you just? And why is that? What is the difference between being just and good and wise? What is this particular virtue that we also see as kind of sometimes put as on the other side of mercy, kind of a dichotomy? What does justice mean? What does it mean within God's eyes? And I think Saint Joseph very much models it well in what it means to be just in the eyes of God. We've kind of talked about it before, but really, like as Jesus says in the Gospels, no man is good but God alone. Goodness comes from God. The love that we have comes from gratitude for the people in our life. Love is a constant stream. It comes from above. It comes from the people that God puts into our lives, to whom He loved first, and then He loves us first. True love is derivative of gratitude, and it's grace. It's something that's poured into our hearts. Justice is something else, though. It kind of is that. But the one thing that we really can do, the one thing that we do get to give to God, is our free will. It's our choice. The decision to give to God what is owed to God. To, the realization, that flame of love that enters us and, prompts us to say, you know what? God has done something wonderful for us. Maybe I should give back to Him. That's God. That's God moving your heart in that direction. The commitment to actually do that, that is your choice. That's what we get to bring to God. So God ultimately, He gets, He deserves all the credit for all the, everything that is good. Everything that's good within us comes from Him, either in, like I said, kind of the after or in the before. A seed He plants in us, remaining the image and likeness of God. We all have the potential for good. One of the most wonderful things about God is His ability to kind of, a relationship with God starts with Him touching us in kind of the deepest place, in a way that's deeper than even we can understand. God reaches all the way down to our deepest desires, our deepest thoughts, and He connects with that seed that He started, He planned in us when He made us, when He formed us, and He draws us out from there and tends to us. Raises us as a father does a child, as Saint Joseph did for Jesus. Sure, great to see you, man. Thanks for popping in. I'm doing all right. A little bit, trying to recover from being a little bit of a salt of crankiness because my computer kind of totally broke and we're starting late and everything, but trying to lock myself back in. Also just been rough for me recently, but I'm doing all right. Missing Sentry, that's been a thing for me, but all in all, God is good. Really enjoying the glasses. Those have been certainly a positive. Enjoying how the community's kind of rallied together since Sentry left. Enjoying having Ethernet today. Thankful for that. Life is good. So how are you, brother? So when we talk about justice, justice is duty. Justice is what we give to God. It's what's owed to God. It's as simple as fairness. And a beautiful part of it as well is that God changed, there's man's justice and there's God's justice. They're very different things. because one is wrapped up and tied up in mercy, and one is kind of just wrapped up in the moment. One sees the bigger picture, one sees the smallest picture. Vengeance is kind of, we talk about the justice of man. Um, the justice of God is fairness, and it involves giving to God what is owed to God. And sometimes that means mercy. We owe mercy to our brothers and sisters to God because of what he did for us and what he did for them. We kind of owe we owe that to him to be good to his children. God had mercy on us, so we do it for other people, and we commit ourselves to what God has put in front of us. We commit ourselves to persevering through these struggles. We commit ourselves to walking through the desert. Look at the life of Saint Joseph, totally different than he ever had planned. The man thought he was just going to have the wonderful simple life. He was a carpenter. He had a trade that he loved. He was betrothed to a wonderful woman. He saw a life of, I'm going to get married. I'm going to get to have, kids of my own. And so on and so forth. And this is going to be my life. It's going to be a simple life. I'm going to live in the area I grew up in. And then God comes to him, and then, first he hears the news his wife to be is pregnant. That's earth shattering. Whether people will debate whether what he would have assumed at that moment, what he would have thought. But nonetheless, whether or not he decided to believe that Mary was unfaithful, it's nonetheless the thought certainly came to his mind that that's a heartbreak, no matter what. That could have been what happened, and so he decides, despite that, to just divorce her quietly. We hear about that before God even comes to her, but comes to him in a dream, and tells him, reveals to him what really happened. He had enough faith in Mary and in God to kind of go against what was justice at the time. A lot of people, the law of Moses gets a lot of hate. It doesn't deserve the hate it gets. The law of Moses came from God. The law of Moses was a good thing. Should have been broken willy-nilly. In his case, there's more, he didn't really believe the law of Moses really applied here. He was willing to assume the best for Mary. He gave he was fair, and he was just in the most literal sense. He innocent until proven guilty. He held to that, and so even if it meant, this person could, a miracle may have been involved. There is no proof that she had done something wrong, so he wasn't going to demand that she be stoned to death. He's just going to let it go, even though it totally would have destroyed his life. And that is extreme commitment. That is extreme detachment. That is extreme commitment. That is extreme love. And these two things go together. True justice and true love go hand in hand. As he literally would go hand in hand with the Savior, who is love himself, with Mary, who in a special way, God, makes his love known to us. And he commanded to the Holy Family. Then God comes to him and tells him to take Mary as his wife. Now he has to deal with all the gossip and all the hate that he doesn't deserve. We've all been there. We've all had people saying shit about us that they shouldn't have been saying. They don't know the full story. They're quick to judge. And he decided to commit to her anyways. He was going to treat this woman well. He was going to love her as his own wife. He was going to love the child as his own son. And he knew what that would involve. And sure enough, here comes Herod. Herod decides to basically decimate his hometown. You have to think about that as well as any person, let alone like a man in your prime, to hear that someone's going to come to your hometown and kill all the children in your home. How outrageous that would be. What you would want to do, whether you'd want to stand and fight or try to step in to save the others, or what that would do to you emotionally as well, to think of the fact that, this is something that's about to happen. God's letting this happen. There's a lot to deal with there. And, but he follows God. He puts his trust in him. He packs his bags, and he goes to Egypt, to protect Christ himself. And kind of a weird, almost perverted inverse Passover, where it's this time the people of God, are chasing down the new ark. the new Ark of the Covenant, Mary, having Christ, the presence of God, in her womb. But they go to Egypt, and he perseveres, and he takes care. He raises his family in a totally foreign land, foreign culture, foreign customs, knows no one, and he perseveres, and he commits, and he commits, and he commits. And then when God says it's time to come back, he uproots his life again. Um, and so the basis of justice is really it's giving to unto God what's owed to God. And the first step in that is letting go of everything, which is really hard to do. To say that nothing really matters to me other than giving to God what I owe to him. My relationships, everything. Everything in my life, is defined. Who I'm going to be married to, the kid I'm going to have in my life, the direction of my life. I'll leave up to God. And then in God's providence, we talk about I'll talk about again when we do get to have that talk on the Transfiguration, kind of something God, that makes Christianity so radically different than so many other religions is that what God asks to sacrifice of you, it's only to give you more. And in the place of what he thought he would have, he gets to raise not only just any ordinary kid, he gets God himself in his home. And God, not just the God of, the God who moves the seas, but the God of profound love and profound joy. You can't possibly imagine just how much love and peace and joy was in that household. He got to care for and be with God, every day of